Hey, welcome to KUAM News' Decision 2014. I'm Jess Lujan, your host for this half-hour show, and I want to introduce my producer, Keen JC Conception. Hey, glad to have two candidates here this morning. We're honored to have them in studio. We have incumbent Senator Michael San Nicolas,
Morning,
he's here,
Jason.
Democrat,
Morning.
alongside Republican candidate Wil Castro.
Buenos dias and Hafidi.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
All right,
Hey,
all right.
let's get right to it anyway. Hey, happy Monday.
Happy.
You guys have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend.
Yeah,
Spent
really
some
good.
time at the beach.
Yeah.
it
There,
was fun.
there we go.
Good.
I tell you, let's start off, Senator San Nicolas, your platform to the people of Guam. Please.
Well, it's been about building a responsible Guam.
Okay.
We've been focusing on managing the people's money well, making sure that we're investing to improve the quality of life of our people, and trying to do everything that we can to ensure that our government is fair and equal in its application of the laws. And we've been doing that from day one, and we're going to hope to continue doing that if you give us an opportunity in the 33rd Guam legislature.
Okay. Will?
Throughout the campaign trail, Senator, I've been trying to reduce my message to a single line, and I firmly believe, being a teacher by profession, that the time is now to work with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle to no longer settle for an adequate, but to demand an excellent education. The buildup is upon us, and I really think if we start from there, we'll be able to prepare our workforce to meet those needs, the workforce needs. The other thing I try to share with the electorate is I really see an increased need for technology skills and services in the community. So from time to time, I talk about one of the things I'd like to see happen in the 33rd Guam legislature is the establishment of regional technology centers. And of course, the last thing that I also impart out there is my personal experiences based on two unauthorized entries in the theft of our motor vehicles. So I really think that the community, with the support of the government to some extent, needs to play a vital role in helping to deter crime.
Now, let me ask both of you questions here, and who wants to start? Okay, Senator, you have the upper hand of this.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Let me ask you this. Of course, economic prosperity. You have oversight of rev and tax, aviation, future generations. That's a new entity. But anyway, that being said, you're looking for ways to try and bring in extra revenue, new revenues, make sure money's accounted for, make sure we have what we say what is appropriate. That's the money we really have in hand. In reading all articles and interviews that you had. Now, let me ask you this. Do you support the governor's position on auctioning off commercial property for delinquent property taxes, and this for commercial property instead of private landowners and that? And do you support his take on that?
You know what makes it problematic is that when you're applying the law and you're picking and choosing when it's going to apply,
Sure.
you're opening up the door for the affected parties to come back and sue and say, why did you go after me? And that's where I'm very concerned of this process at this point, because I believe that we need to tighten it up better. Even Rev and Tax in a recent oversight hearing was very, very clear that they're still waiting for the procedures from the Attorney General. And when they told me that in our hearing, I said, now wait a minute. If we don't even have all the procedures in place and we're not sure exactly how we're going to go about executing this, how can we expect our people to have confidence in the process when they don't even know what the process is? And so, for the governor to be saying that we're going to only be targeting the commercial businesses, I can appreciate where he's coming from, because nobody wants to take away a home from a family.
Sure.
But when it comes to the equal application of the law, we also want to make sure we're not going to be having our government end up in court either. So what I would prefer is that we halt the process altogether. We make sure all those procedures are adopted according to the Administrative Adjudication Act. And once those things are fully implemented and we give ample notice to our people about what's going to be happening, then we can, with confidence, move forward. But with our people not being aware of those procedures not being implemented or even properly enacted, I'm very, very concerned about moving the process forward at this time.
Now, Will, let me ask you this. On top of that, let me ask you this, because you're a technology guy, so as well as yourself. But your platform is basically you want to bring technology to a new age here in the government of Guam. Let me ask you this: do you agree with the governor's stance again in going after the commercial property owners as opposed to private landowners of this? But likewise, because we're a company as well, and we've dealt with situations here at Rev and Tax. And the unfortunate thing is that the technology, the communication between Department of Land Management and, and Revenue Tax is to be desired at this point. So I'm going like, whoa, this could be chaotic if it happens. So please, your take on that.
You know, Senator, I'm never for the forfeiture or acquisition of properties, albeit personal or corporate. I really think that all mechanisms have to be exhausted before you ever get to that. And I'm speaking from personal experience, even in my own family. My father, as much as he makes as a retired member of the government, had his struggles. And it you know, it's devastating to a family, and what more a corporation that employs a lot of people when you're going after real property, okay? So, but knowing the character of this governor, I have full faith and confidence that he'll exhaust all mechanisms before he exercises his executive authority. I really believe that he'll be judicious in carrying out this mandate or this requirement of law. That much I can say. I don't think he's necessarily targeting corporations. I really believe, without knowing the details, that he's probably putting this forward because he sees there's a historical record there of maybe not deliberate abuse or deliberate attempt to circumvent the law to pay your taxes, but just probably a little pressure needs to be applied.
Now let me go back to you, and then I'll go to you, Senator. Let's go to the hospital. Okay, recently, I think it was just last week, where the hospital administrator, Mr. Verga, says, well, he just came back from St. Luke, visiting St. Luke. He wants to partner up with St. Luke, which is good news. I mean, who is going to not be in favor of a partnership and to bring expertise out here and things like that? But if we don't fix, I mean, this is a bucket not with holes anymore. This is a bucket that's got no bottom. If we don't fix that, all we're going to get ourselves into is just to more debt. I mean, it's great to be able to have expertise. It's great to be able to have the expertise that people don't already have here to save them money from going over there. But what that's going to do as well is you're still going to have non-payers, and those non-payers are just going to incur more debt. So until we come to the point, again, on identifying money sources to pay for this, I think going down this road is great, but we have to find the solution to be able to pay. And I'm just saying, what is your solution?
Well, to the issue, your first point about seeking off-island expertise to fill the void, I think that's probably the last resort without exhausting looking within to see who's here and qualified out of the university or the private sector. Second, Jess, and maybe the incumbent can also speak to this, the pressures upon the Guam Memorial Hospital, and I'm just an educator, so I'm not intimately familiar with the operational needs of the hospital, but it's pretty straightforward. It's common sense. We're paying about, let's say, as an example, $10 for services for which $6 of revenues come in. But there's a deeper problem, a problem that's been here 20-some years, and I think that as a member of the 33rd Guam legislature, we need to apply more pressure to the federal government to contribute its fair share on the compact impact upon the infrastructure, whether it's education or healthcare or our island's roads. So I think if we address that, maybe there'll be an end in sight. But Jess, it's pretty simple to me. I've heard it mentioned on the trail that a private sector operation to provide hospital services can staff itself at, let's say, I'll give a conservative number, 50% of the current employment that's going on at the hospital. While I'll never advocate for people to lose their jobs, I'm certainly going to advocate that they get trained up and be given the opportunity to do better at the hospital, and for Mr. Verga to stand up as the CEO and identify additional revenues or make the necessary hard decisions to move that entity forward. Simply, it's a cyclical process if you just provide services and you can't pay those professionals who are giving it to you.
Senator?
Well, first of all, I really believe that we need to tackle the problems that are within our realm of control. Definitely, we can go after more compact impact money. I know Director Verga is going after more Medicare reimbursements. But actually, within GMH, one of the areas that they really need to improve on is in the billings. For example, when my son had to go into GMH and get some surgery done, it took about 6 months for us to actually get a finally reconciled billing. And if you're waiting 6 months to receive your revenue, and then turning around and saying that you're having revenue problems, and it's all boiling down to how long it's taking for you to actually get a bill out to the customer who's ready to pay, I think that that's an internal issue that needs to be addressed. We brought that up with Director Verga when we had an oversight hearing with respect to some other matters, and I addressed it directly. And you could see a look of concern in their faces as well. So I'm hoping that they're taking that information, they're going right back into the shop and they're saying we need to improve on these timelines. One of the other things that we tried to improve on was right now in the health insurance industry, in law, the health insurance companies have 45 days to process a clean claim and make payment to a vendor, particularly to the hospital. And that 45 days, as you know, Jess, in the private sector, oftentimes billing cycles are net 30. So within 30 days, you know, you got to pay your bill. For example, if you buy medicine or if you buy any batch of supplies, you have 30 days to pay the vendor. But if we're giving the insurance companies 45 days to actually make good on a claim, then we're already passing the 30-day mark on the supply or net 30 timeline. So when you pass net 30, your prices go up, your costs go up. So I know Senator Respicio did introduce a bill that we supported to reduce the 45-day clean claim processing time in the insurance companies down to 30 days, so that all of our medical professionals, not just the hospital, but all of our medical professionals will be able to get payment from the insurance companies faster. Unfortunately, that bill was vetoed. But I will support trying that again, only because it makes sense within the business timelines of net 30, net 60, net 90.
Now, let me ask you this. It's just a yes or no a question here. I know on one of the first actions in the 27th Guam legislature, which I happen to serve in, one of the first actions we took was basically privatization of GTA. At that time, there was some resistance, but in general, I mean, in totality, when you look at it now, look at what we have. I mean, we have competitive. I mean, we have competition. I love competition. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Is it time now? I mean, you've been there now for almost one full term. You've been there now, and I've heard your debates. I'm not going to give any more money to the hospital. I've heard that. So is it time to really consider, and I've kind of heard what you said a little bit and kind of leaning towards, is it time to consider maybe looking at maybe the privatization, maybe not doing it this year, but seriously consider putting that on the table as an option to possibly tackle?
I think so. I mean, and for the benefit of all of the employees, I think we need to put all options on the table. We need to make sure that we're looking at the entity with the idea of keeping it sustainable. And that means that not only should we take all these avenues that we have been taking, trying to get them the funding that they need, but also maintaining a disciplined oversight, trying to make sure the money is getting spent in a way that's going to keep the hospital going. But also keep all those options on the table. You know, because if you're a nurse working for GMH, or if you're a nurse working for GMH Private, you're a nurse working.
That's right.
You know, and if that's going to keep us from shutting down the hospital and keeping people employed and keeping those services available to our community, then we need to keep all options on the table.
Well,
The question was, do I support the privatization of the Guam Memorial Hospital? If you asked me that question today and I was a member of the Guam legislature, well, I have everything in front of me, the answer is simply no. No, because I believe you need to conduct an environmental scan. I don't know how many of states and territories within the American family actually have taken that route. I'm not even talking about the impact upon employment. I'm just talking about the role of government in being able to provide those necessary and critical services. So at this point in time, if I had to make a hard decision, it'll be firm and it'll be no. At the same time, if we were able to come back with some supporting evidence to the contrary, then I'm always, Senator, in favor of the private sector being able to provide basic services that are not core to the function that government operation needs to provide.
And again, as one who served the 27th, 28th, and 29th, and happened to vice chair oversight of the hospital under Senator Mike Cruz at the time, I tell you, I mean, it's just between that and at the time DOE, it's like, you know, we don't deal with them just one time on the budget cycle. It's constantly. It's at the time Senator or Lieutenant Governor Mike Cruz said it's a bucket full of holes. Well, that bucket it's not full of holes anymore. It's got no bottom anymore at this point. So anyway, but thank you for that. Another question here, and who did I start with? I guess I'll start with you, right? Let me ask this question. Are you in favor of seeking an exemption to the Jones Act? When I say Jones Act, it's.
I won't even allow you to finish.
Hold on. Okay, hold on. With the okay, not just the shipping, but also the airlines. And how would you go about to pressure the delegate, whoever it may be, to make sure we seek the exemption of the Jones Act for Guam?
I think I learned a valuable lesson growing up. You only speak when you know what you're talking about. So I can't speak at great length about the cabotage with respect to open skies and those issues you champion. But if the principle's the same, I'll stand firmly on it. Getting specific to the Jones Act, If you go back in history, the Jones Act was designed to protect the maritime employees of that shipping company at one time. Then it took a loose translation up into this part of the world to be a protective piece of policy for that particular industry and that particular shipping line, one or two providers, notwithstanding who it is. So going back to the first question about Guam Memorial, would you outsource it, or things that came from the sale of GTA, I really believe if you open up shipping, a lot of good things can come from that. Now, there are exemptions to the Jones Act. So maybe to clarify, your question is total exemption? Absolutely.
But let me see with the Jones Act, because the Jones Act, and the senator will know this as well, the Jones Act is all inclusive. It's the one name that has oversight of cabotage as well. So the Jones Act is what it is the umbrella, and cabotage
If I had to
is a
say
part of
yes
that,
or no on the all or nothing, it's an
Yeah.
absolute yes.
Yeah.
Now, I want to speak to the second issue.
Okay.
You asked, there was a part B to your question about if the delegate was there, what could we do to pressure the delegate? Now, I don't know what I'm going to do to pressure the delegate, but I know what I'm going to do to apply pressure to the federal entities and or regional entities that are participants in this discussion. Just as it's simple as taking a firm stance, I think, in bringing imports from our respective brothers and sisters, the neighboring countries, to see if in fact there's going to be a duty or some kind of sanction if we come in on a non-U.S. owned vessel to transport Finadeni Denancy, for example, from Rhoda. So I don't need the delegate to be at the bow of the ship when we come into the harbor. What I'd like to see is the federal government exerting its federal control and authority, perhaps through the Coast Guard, to dare to challenge our long-standing maritime
And the
practice.
reason why I said how do we pressure the delegate, because when I was pushing for our open skies and exemption of the Jones Act, it was the delegate that was the biggest obstacle in obtaining our open skies. Senator, your thoughts?
You know, again, all about what we can control, right? And so the issue is the Jones Act and cabotage, but getting deeper into it, the question is how can we get lower shipping rates? How can we get lower airline rates? In the end, that's what it boils down to for our people. And so I think that, and I'll answer the question in two phases. The first phase is how do we get those prices down with the situation that we currently have? Right now, I think that we need to be concentrating more effort on actually going out and shopping for competition. Competition for airlines, competition for shipping will be very, very good, not only for our people who use those services, but for the employees who work there. Because once there's a competitive environment, you know, employers are raising salaries, are raising benefits, trying to attract the most qualified candidates.
Spoken like a good Republican.
Oh, well, you know, for me, I'm a student of finance, you know, and so it makes financial sense, you know. If we can invite more competition, airlines or shipping-wise,
You took my arguments.
we're going to be able to improve it not only for the employees but also for the customer. And I really think that there's an opportunity out there to find that because, you know, for example, you know who the founder of JetBlue Airlines is?
Sure.
You know where he got his idea from? Working here on Guam.
Interesting.
He was working here on Guam and he saw what the airlines were doing and he said, wow, I can really do this much smaller, much more cost effective and compete very, very well, and he did.
And let me say this because, and the reason, one of the things I said, and again, what I said, you know, your arguments were very familiar because those are the arguments that you use as well, and of course I was chastised and all that. But let me tell you this, and I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you already know this, but just recently, I think it was back in July, if I'm not mistaken, they started, you know, the Honolulu Guam Honolulu route with United. That if you are in economy, you are no longer served meals. You have to buy the meals because it is considered a domestic flight. Okay, domestic flight. Now let me tell you this. When you look at the U.S. Department of State airport taxes and fees, right? You pay for the international departure tax. That's all included in your taxes. Okay. You also pay international airport tax. Likewise, you're paying the immigration fee taxes. Now, how can we? Please tell me. How can we be international and domestic all at the same time and really not given any benefits on the domestic side? Please tell me.
You're right on the money, and actually this goes back to the insular cases. There's a case called Downs versus Bidwell. It goes all the way back to the shipment of oranges from Puerto Rico. It's a very old case, but it defined in the courts that the territories are classified as foreign in a domestic sense. But what that does is it creates a very weird animal where the federal government can pretty much decide that they're going to apply foreign rules to us or they're going to apply domestic rules to us. And unfortunately, in large part, with the exception of our open, our duty-free port, that's the one good non-domestic exception
Sure.
we've gotten, but everything else has been kind of domestic restrictive.
Well, we got the waiver for cargo.
Yeah.
We didn't get the waiver for the top of the airplane.
Exactly,
Let me-
exactly, and that's where it gets kind of strange.
Sure.
Let me just add, I appreciate the question about identifying if we can get those amenities
Sure.
like cookies and juice as a part of these duties and excise, whatever taxes are associated with fees. But let me take you back to 1998. While cookies and I think juice are legitimate questions to bring out a much bigger problem, I was there when the late Senator Angel Santos was calling Continental to the table to ask them, how is it that you can preclude our people from addressing, whether it's you're disembarking or getting on to go to another place, addressing those folks coming out of the airplane in our own language? Hafa mo ng gintisinya hu usa I lingwahita, right? Ginanitaw-tawta. The other thing that troubled me, and I'm not thoroughly familiar with the issue, but it's pretty common sense to me, that if the Jones Act, these cabotage protectionist acts, were designed to protect the employees, primarily through labor disputes and injuries, how is it that then when we become integrated with an American-based corporation, and they probably mean well, that now there's a requirement for certain people who were born and probably raised here to have to be relocated to another part of the great American contiguous U.S. And that's troubling for me, Jess, to
Well,
to
I mean,
reconcile.
and then the argument at the time, of course, the airlines came after me basically, and they said he was going to cost jobs and all that. Well, talk to the flight attendants that had the Guam Hano flight that are Guam based that no longer have that route, because those are routes that are taken now by Honolulu-based flight attendants. So our flight attendants have lost that routing. Some of them have again, and so. Again, as you say, competition is good all the way around. It's good for employees. It's good for you and I, the traveler. The unfortunate thing is that if you're a business first person, you're not feeling maybe the repercussions. But if your economy, as most of us travel, we feel it. And again, if you're purchasing a ticket that's 3 hours further away, you get it a lot cheaper because there's competition. We're an international destination. You have United, you have PAL that flies back and forth to the Philippines. Now, of course, both airlines are going to serve food. You know why? Because if you don't, the competition, you're going to go to the other side and have it. And I had sought competition for this route, the Guam Honolulu route. The unfortunate thing is that because of code sharing, they were very hesitant to knock off Big Brother, basically. So I like to help you guys out with that. But
Sure.
anyway, that being said, let me ask you this. A lot of, again, these federal restrictions, we're talking cabotage and all this. That leads us to this. A lot of what we can do and we can't do is because our political status. Of what you know of our political status now, if we were to vote, same time we were going to vote for you guys into office, if we were to vote for a particular status of what you know, and if there were only those three will be down the line what we're going to vote for. If we're voting in November for our political status, of what you guys know of each status, what are you inclined to choose at this point, and why?
Am I first?
Sure.
I'll go first. I like to do a lot of analogies when I think of this issue. If we were to ask a 13-year-old right now, are you ready to move out of your house? As rebellious or as vocal or as whatever that 13-year-old is, they're going to go to their room and they're going to be pissed off, but they're going to go back to their room. They're not going to move out of their house. Unless it's a grossly abusive environment, and that's when the state kicks in and all kinds of different things happen. But in an environment like we have now in our relationship with the United States, if we ask our people the question, are we ready to choose our political destiny? I would liken us to that 13-year-old, and I would liken us to that because we have not fully matured in our current state of affairs. I believe that our current status needs to change. But we need to first maximize all of the opportunities that we have in that status. And there's so many areas where we're just kind of missing the boat. We don't have Social Security for our new plan employees here. We have a delegate that doesn't vote, and we haven't even tried to push that issue as hard as we possibly can. We haven't taken the issue of our participation in the United States to the fullest extent. We do have one of my former classmates, Neil Weir, working now to try and get us our right to be able to vote for president. And so as we continue to strive for more social and economic independence within the existing framework that we have, I think that that's going to move us closer and closer to finally being able to be a 25-year-old or a 22-year-old with a college degree, where if our parents come to us and say, hey, are you ready to move out? We're going to be able to look back and say, absolutely, I'm going to be moving to Chalampagu, and this is my address, and this is my phone number, and Mom, I'll come and visit you every weekend because I know you're going to miss me.
Yeah,
You know, that's where I would like us to be when we ask our people that question, because then they'll be answering that question from a position of competence rather than a position of fear. They'll be answering that question from a place where they're going to believe in the future that they're going to be able to create for themselves.
Or believe the fact that the status quo is I'm comfortable with this.
Senador, no bien probetsu, por edzu na questiona. Said edzigi na mas preciso gihina soko, gihinengeko para itaw tauta. I really believe, Senator, you asked the right question at the right time. If there's anything I hope, aside from being tagged on the pushing for an excellent education agenda, I'd like it to be this. If you ask me a straight question, I'm going to give you a firm answer. And she asked me, what political hafa na ustaw mas daho para hita? If I had to vote today, based on what information I have, I'd like to be fully incorporated into the American family as a state. I really would. Now, this dipago tihu recibi un otro nakata that would tell me otherwise. And there are legitimate arguments. And I agree. I think the incumbent here sees the potentialities with all three potential statuses. Free association, albeit independence. However, I'm not a gambler. And so if I had to make a decision based on what I believe to have the highest probability of progress and prosperity for the people of Guam, I would choose statehood. Because I believe, Senator, that as my colleague here and I have been going back and forth and sharing our ideas, I think he's a very strong personality in the domestic sense. But I want to push the envelope. I want to push the regional, international, and federal envelope, Senator. And I really believe that in this spirit of competition, you can't compete if you're not even on the court. And I'm going to push for 2 state senators, and I'm going to push for congressional representation based on population. So if you ask me today what you did about a minute and a half ago, I would vote firmly for full incorporation into the American family as a state.
Now let me ask this question for both of you as well, and it's part of your platform, but it encompasses basically a bigger picture. One of your platform things here is that in education, you want to engage not just the federal government, but our regional leaders and things like that, to make sure we have, again, if sufficient funding for materials and things of that nature. We have a third-party fiduciary at DOE. How do you propose to get us out of that? And again, isn't it just to make sure that, if you're looking at the regional, I doubt it. They're going to say, well, wait a minute, there's a compact impact we signed. How are you going to get the federal government to adhere to the agreement of compact impact and to get us out of the third-party fiduciary? Because that's money that in years past supposedly have been used for other things other than what it's supposed to be used for.
Senator, you
go ahead and then we'll go with
Senator,
yeah.
you asked a 2-part question, and they're not mutually exclusive of each other. But we're in high-risk status, as you know, Senator Lujan, and that's not a byproduct of compact impact, nor is it a byproduct of underfunding. Third-party fiduciary is here as a direct result of the government of Guam being unable to account for its monies. However, to the credit of folks like John Fernandez, and even to people like Ike Santos and those hardworking folks at the Federal Programs Division, they have demonstrated, and the incumbent could correct me if I'm wrong, that in fact we've delivered 2 years of a clean audit. So I think we're on our way of getting out of a third-party fiduciary, or what actually they're just an agent to execute some kind of oversight on a high-risk status. I really think that the other issue, I don't think you need to go across the river, Senator, in terms of the FSM and compact impact. I really would like to shift that argument to say, Angin manhihita gini gi islata. If we are one American family, if we have one public school system, then I challenge our federal brothers and sisters to say, stop. I want a moratorium on new DODEA schools. If you stop the infusion of capital into new schools and the sustainment of operations at those DODEA schools, I really believe that if you bring that back to DOE and let everybody manage that to the best of their ability and exercise oversight, I really think we can deliver a better product. That's just my humble opinion because, and I'll close with this and I'll let the incumbent respond, to erect a brand new high school can cost anywhere between 16 and 22 million, Senator, and they've done that, and there's even plans to erect another one. Hafamon Zatafanhatsa Nuevo na Escuela Gilugata, right here outside the fence so we can all go to school. Because I believe if you're not doing a great job, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You come back to the table and you hold people accountable. So the issue is not an issue of funding. It's an issue of accountability and leadership.
Thank you. Senator, you have a minute and a half, as I was
Okay. The question was, how are we going to make sure that we follow through on our financial commitments?
Sure.
And how do we keep ourselves from going into situations where we have third-party fiduciaries or we go into receivership like at the
$3 million a year we're paying for right now, right?
Yeah, and the issue is we need to stop putting ourselves in that position. And one of the things that's really concerning me this very day, Jess, is the court ordered us to pay tax refunds within 6 months. The last payment we made was in February 18th, which means that we are about 19 days away from breaching that 6-month timeline. If we breach that 6-month timeline and don't pay our tax refunds within that 6-month period, are the federal government going to come back to us and put us into some form of garnishment or receivership on that issue again? We need to make sure that we don't cross that line. And that's one of the reasons why I fully support the need for us to go out and use Section 30 money to cover the shortfall on the tax refunds. We cannot allow ourselves to go into any kind of federal receivership anymore. You know, and that's the kind of stuff where we need to be in front of the issue, not having the federal government telling us how to manage our finances. We need to prove to our people that we are capable of doing it. And that means that when we have these obligations, we meet those obligations.
Well, thank you very much. I tell you what, we got 2 minutes basically, and I tell you, you can start. What will be the first thing you do when you get into office again? Should you be reelected? And then all that. 1 minute, okay?
Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we reestablish our baselines. We've done that so far. Our work in the last year with Revenue Tax, for example, has shown year-over-year progress on collections. We're down $6 million in our receivables. We need to make sure that we reestablish those baselines because it's all about managing and expecting and making sure that we're following through on the improvement of the government services and the quality of life of our people. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Once we make sure that all the work that we've done over the last 2 years has baselined and we're continuing to make progress there, we're going to start opening up new areas that we're going to be able to manage. I want to start focusing on making sure that our finance and banking industries have a more improved regulatory environment because those industries pay people well and those industries have a lot of room to grow. And we need to grow those industries in order to create better jobs for our people.
What number are you on the ballot?
Number 2 in the primary.
There we go. Okay.
I'm Senator Michael San Nicolas. In case you know.
Well,
Again, nai juno un chansa na be set be hamzi itaw taw tagini. Be nai hamzu I hinengeko jani gunai jangwahan. I would like, if I had the opportunity to serve you, to introduce Bill 1 and even ask my colleague to help co-sponsor that. It's an omnibus bill that would not settle for inadequate but deliver a very progressive educational agenda for change and demand that we provide an excellent education for all our young ones. I also think that we need to take a more aggressive position, support the administration on the establishment of technology centers and making technology a lot more accessible. It's the foundation of the future workforce. Actually, not the future, the current workforce. Those are the 2 primary things I like to look at if given the opportunity to serve in the 33rd Guam legislature along such fine folks that are already serving now.
and your name again?
My
and
name
what
is
number?
Wil Castro. I'm number 14 on the Republican ballot. Por favor, considera-jo por este na mamela na election. Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, they're only going to get darker as the
As we wave.
as they wave. But anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you
Jess.
very
Thank
much,
you
Will.
very
Good luck
much. Thank you,
in the
Senator.
upcoming election. Good luck again.
My
Thank you
friend.
very much. Again, join me tomorrow morning right here on ISLA 63, where we'll have candidates Michelle Teichner on the Republican side and Rodney Cruz Jr. from the Democratic side of the ballot. That's it for us. Thank you very much. I appreciate again these gentlemen coming in here, and please give them a thought, review this, and then vote. But make sure you vote. It's your duty to vote. Register and vote. We're going to take a break and then talk to you at the top of the hour. We'll be right back.